Well, hello, Ventura. Hi, Evie. Hi. Everyone. Welcome to Channel Islands Live. And we are coming to you live today from the beautiful waters surrounding Anacapa Island. I'm Ranger Dave, and I'd like to welcome our audience in Ventura. Evie, the Ventura Junior Guards are there in full force, it sounds like.
Yes, they are.
All right, and there are other people watching, I'm sure, as well in the audience there. So hello, everyone in Ventura. We also have here on Anacapa Island some people who just came out to the island today on the Vanguard to enjoy the day on the island. And our island moderator, Josh Brooks, I want to say hello to our island audience. Let's hear a big hello from both of you. That's a lot of people on the island. Well, I know we have a couple people here watching as well on the island, and we also have people watching us today as we stream live on the internet, and that's made possible thank you to our tech partners, Ventura County Office of Education and Explore.org, and we're able to reach quite a few people out there, so hello to all of you. And I know some of you are chatting in, and we'll do the best we can to answer some of your questions while you do that as well. So we're able to reach a wide variety of people, and I'd like to ask Evie, our junior guards, a question. Just shout it out if you have, some of you have been in the guards for more than 1 year, if you've seen this program before. So a bunch of you have, and it's been a year or so. Welcome back. And so you know, and we'll let all of our other viewers know, that we're not just here diving at Anacapa Island. We're actually diving in a national park and a national marine sanctuary. This is Channel Islands National Park, which isn't just comprised of the islands offshore of Southern California, but it's 5 of the islands plus the waters that surround them. And the waters that surround them are also part of Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary. This particular spot that I'm diving in today is actually a forest. So, Evie, let's have everybody shout out again. This is a test to see what you remembered from last year. What kind of forest am I diving in today? Now, I know that you knew the answer to that question, but it is the basis of what we're seeing down here. Giant kelp, which is an algae, actually, not a plant. And kelp is adapted to life in the ocean. This spot we're in addition to being a national park and marine sanctuary, is also a marine reserve. So you can't even fish here in this area, and it's been this way for over 30 years. So if you're over 30 years old, raise your hand and shout out. I am. Oh, I'm hearing silence. You guys are lucky. But think about this. This area has been protected from fishing your entire lives plus some. And so, Evie, does someone there have an idea as to what that would mean for this area? What does that additional protection of being a marine reserve do to the life down here in the Kelp Forest?
There's more fish and more life.
Yeah, more fish and more life. And how do we know that? Does anyone know how we know there's more fish and more life down here? Because it's a protected area.
We do not know.
Well, I'll tell you. We don't know unless we do research. And there are people actually out today at the Channel Islands who are marine biologists who work for this park. And their job is to go to 33 different sites around the islands. This is actually one of them, year after year, and to study the health of the kelp forest, to count what's here, certain indicator species, to see what changes are occurring. And we've also been doing that program for about a little bit over 30 years. And so with all of that data, we can learn what's happening in the kelp forest. Josh, there's a calico bass right there. There's some fish swimming down here, and I don't know if you can, there's a little baby one. Maybe while I'm talking, we can show some of the marine life here. And that's just one little example of the new life that is occurring down here that we're seeing right now. So one of the things that our researchers have been seeing, and we as Channel Islands Life divers are seeing it ourselves, is that things don't always stay the same in the kelp forest. And something happened this past year, an atmospheric condition occurred in these waters, and does anyone know what that atmospheric condition is? What happened to the waters this summer?
Please hold.
Hot and warm water, or like warm and cold waters combined?
Yeah, we had a water temperature change. A lot of people were talking this year about El Nino. El Nino is coming. It's going to end the drought, and we'll get all this rain. And unfortunately, we didn't get that much rain this year, but we did get a lot of big swell, and we also had a lot of warm water coming here. Now, kelp thrives in cold, nutrient-rich water. Right now, the water temperature is about 60 degrees, which is right in that optimum range. At the peak of the warm water event that we had, the waters were over 70 degrees, and a lot of this kelp, almost all of it, died off. So, since you were here last time, for those of you who have seen the program in prior years, all of the life you see here, all of the big towering kelp, this wasn't here 6 months ago. And yet now, look at these shots Josh is showing you. There's all kinds of growth, big strands of kelp, and it's shooting up towards the surface. It can actually grow over 100 feet in length, and it's spread out like a canopy up there. And it grows quite fast to do that. What do you think it needs to grow besides cold water? Josh is giving you a clue. You probably see it in the picture right now.
Sunlight?
Sunlight, yeah. So, even though we're underwater, sunlight is still the main source of energy, and kelp uses that process called photosynthesis to draw that energy down here and to create food, and also it creates a habitat for many living things. There are about 1,000 different kinds of algae, like kelp and other types of algae, plants, animals like those fish you saw, that rely on the kelp forest for home, as a home. And so when the kelp disappeared with the warm water, what do you think happened to the sea life down here?
Hold on 1 minute.
Okay.
It might have also died off.
Yeah, a lot of it died off. Some of it, if it was able to, swam away. And that little baby calico bass we saw is indicative of the regeneration of the kelp forest. And so as the kelp has come back, and this is a fun fact, and actually, Josh, do our viewers on the island want to make a guess? I know we only have a couple people here for the morning program on the island, but let's just have a fun guess. How fast do you think this kelp can grow in a day during the summertime?
No, they have no guess.
No guess?
No.
It's 2 feet a day. I didn't ask the junior guards that because I know you guys know this, but it's an astounding rate of growth for a living thing. It's one of the fastest growing living things on the planet. And as the kelp has come back, the animals that rely on it are coming back to the kelp forest as well. But we're seeing a lot of juveniles, and that kind of makes sense considering the changes that have occurred here. So, Josh, why don't we make our way, and let's head over this direction a little bit. And while we're moving, I want to ask a question of the junior guards again. Do you think that this area because the cold waters have returned and that this is a protected area, do you think this area is now free of threats? Or do you think there are still some threats this kelp forest faces?
There probably are still some. I think there still are some threats.
Okay. Anybody have any idea of what some of those threats might be?
Overpopulation of one fish.
Okay, well, actually, let me call in one of our support divers, Julian, because that's a good point you bring up, and that is one of the threats. Thank you. So this isn't a fish, but it's one of the animals that lives down here. I'm going to go ahead and shout out, what animal am I holding? Sea urchin! So this is a red sea urchin. There are different species of sea urchin that live down here. It's actually a grazer. So bits of kelp will break off of the main plant and get caught in its spines. And you can see the spines moving. They're somewhat flexible. And it also has these little tube feet on the bottom. And it will use the spines and tube feet to bring that kelp around to its mouth to feed on it. So it's a grazing animal. And can you see the mouth, Evie? Is this visible?
Not really.
How about now?
A little bit.
Yeah, Josh is saying no. There
we go, yes.
Okay. I had a hard time with that because it's a little red sea urchin. These things can be as big as a bowling ball sometimes. But think about that. They graze on kelp. The kelp disappeared for a while. It's now coming back. We're seeing smaller urchins, and these can grow to be quite large. But too many of one species was the answer, and if too many red sea urchins are taken out of the system here, and that happens in areas where they're fished, people actually, believe it or not, eat these. Their smaller cousin, the purple urchin, fills that void, and purple urchins won't just graze on the leaves of the kelp, but they'll attack the structure of the kelp that holds it to the rock. Josh, here, we can get a shot of this. You can see this spaghetti-like structure that's called a holdfast, and there's actually a whole world of life, tiny little things that live inside of the holdfast as well, but once those are eaten by purple urchins, the kelp drifts away, so they can also decimate a kelp forest. So two threats we've seen today. One is the changing water temperature, and another one is an imbalance of species due to fishing. Speaking of species, there's another baby down here. Do you guys know what this is? A sea hare. Sea slug, I heard, sea hare. And it's called a sea hare because it has these ear-like appendages on the front. One is sort of aiming down here. And this is also a small baby sea hare. These can grow, again, to be 4 or 5 times as large. It's also a grazer. It grazes on algae on the rocks down here. And another sign of new life, and a sign that this protected kelp forest is resilient to be able to come back after changes occur, as long as those changes aren't too severe. And so, another example of an unusual creature that relies on the kelp forest for life. So I'm going to bring in Julian again. I'm going to give him this sea hare back, because we want to put everything back, tuck it away in a nice safe place. And he actually has another creature. This is interesting. I think everybody knows that I have a sea cucumber in my hand. Do you think this is related to any other animal that we've seen today? Yes or no from everybody? Yes. So I know junior guards know the ocean. You guys are ocean people. This is related to that sea urchin, it doesn't really look a lot like it, but you can see little spines on the sea cucumber, and so it's called an echinoderm. That means a spiny-skinned animal, and it is a relative, a cousin of the sea urchin. People actually fish and eat these too. We don't see these very often outside of the marine reserves around the Channel Islands anymore because of overfishing. And they serve a role here too. They're decomposers. Think of them as the earthworm of the kelp forest, and they help to keep the bottom sediment loosened up so that other things can live in it, and they help to decompose organic material. So this is a sea cucumber, and I'm going to give this back to Julian as well. And then I'm going to ask if anyone knows of any other threats to the kelp forest, and I'm going to actually show you one in just a second. But let me see if you guys can think of one more thing first.
Poachers?
Poachers? Yeah, people fishing in the reserves. You know what? It happens. It's too bad. It shouldn't happen, but it does. But here's another one. This plant right between Josh and I. And you think this is a pretty plant? Here it is. Do you think it belongs here? That it naturally occurs here? No. So here's a big threat to the kelp forest around the Channel Islands right now. Introduced invasive species. This is called sargassum. It is a type of algae, but it's not native here. It was introduced, probably came over in the bilge water of ships. As the world shrinks and trade increases, that's great for all of us to, as for our day-to-day lives as consumers, but there are byproducts of that. And so we found that this summer, when the waters warmed and the kelp died off, this invasive species that had been here for a few years at least really blossomed and started to take more territory because it tends to do better in warm water versus cold. And so one of the things we're doing in our kelp forest research will be to look at things like this invasive species and try to find out how much they're having an impact on the kelp forest. And we're hoping, because this is a warmer water or does better in warmer water, well, kelp tends to do better in cooler water, that as the waters have cooled, the kelp will overtake the sargassum and take back some territory. And you can see, as Josh shows you again, shooting up there, actually, Josh, right above you, I think you have that in sight. You see the tower of kelp and that massive sargassum that's all intertwined with it. Has that been visible in some of Josh's shots?
Yes.
And so you can see that this area, there's that kelp snail right there, Josh, right on that piece of kelp right in front of you, too. While protected, and while we're far enough offshore that we don't have as much of that other big threat as mainland areas, which is pollution, these fish that are down here, those echinoderms that I showed you, that sea hare, they're all doing fairly well. They're starting to grow back. And as I mentioned, because this area is protected, it's more resilient than similar kelp forests around the islands where fishing occurs because it has a more naturally functioning ecosystem. But even though it's protected, we're offshore, things are starting to come back from this year's water temperature change. We're not so far away. Everything on the planet is connected. Me, this little senorita, little fish that lives down here, my cameraman Josh, Julian, all of us are connected. The ocean's connected to the land. Watersheds come down here. Plants and algae come from other parts of the world. So nothing is really immune to the changes that occur. But by having areas like this that are protected, we hope again to create areas that are able to withstand the impacts of changes that occur better than areas that aren't protected. And so I know for our junior guards, of course, you guys are ocean people, as I mentioned. You like to swim in the ocean and surf and go snorkeling and diving, I hope, as well. And what do you think you can do? Let's think of one big thing that you guys can do to help in your own way to protect these kelp forests.
Don't put trash in the ocean.
Yeah, don't put trash in the ocean is the simplest thing that we can all do to help protect the kelp forest. But I'm going to tell you one more thing, and you're doing it right now whether you know it or not, and that is by learning about the ocean, gaining knowledge, and gaining a deeper appreciation for it, which happens by getting in the ocean and recreating, and it happens when you learn about the ocean. You then pass that information on to other people, and not just other people around you now, but to your kids, and they'll pass it on to their kids, and you're helping to ensure that healthy kelp forests like this will still be here for many, many years to come and many, many generations. And considering that kelp not only provides a habitat and a food source for the animals that live down here, but that it and other marine algae also provide a large percentage of the oxygen in the air we breathe, that's a really important thing you're doing. So I want to thank you guys for being in the Junior Guards, for joining us today for Channel Islands Live. And now go out and play in the ocean, and we'll say goodbye from underneath Anacapa Island. Thank you guys. Bye-bye.